All right, so week 12, and we are at this point needing to think a bit about the end of the semester. So as of this point, I've recorded the Learn Together week 12. And if you have come to see me for code review, then you make sure you resubmit your new code link, and you can just do another submission here. That way I know that code is ready for my final review. Make sure it's there by that night, this night right here, the 29th, so that I can see it the next morning on the 30th. So making sure you do that. And there's a really, and here's the other thing is if you've missed work to this point, you can still do it. Just know it's discounted 25%. But as you look towards the end of the semester, understand that that's better than a zero, and especially on the develop it's couldn't be more important that if you didn't get that done, you do get that done, because that has a huge impact. Remember, develop it's are worth 50% and everything else is worth 50%. So making sure you keep in focused on that as we move to the end. And then here's what I want to show you. This week, Andrew introduced a concept that is such an important skill, and I just want to show you another way of doing it. And he introduced the idea of actually typing in your JS if you were trying to troubleshoot the idea of putting debug, right? So the debugger. Now, I think that's a fine way to do it. I think it works. There's to me a more efficient way to do this, because what I'm about to show you is basically doing it just inside of Chrome. And I know that you can use Firefox to do this as well. I just don't use Firefox as much as I use Chrome. So let's say in this same place in my method here, display LB, I wanted to actually look at what is being brought into this code and what's coming out of it. So what I can do, and here's my page, is I can right click, hit inspect, and I can come over to sources, right? So I have my page, I can come over to sources, and in sources I can set just by clicking, right? So actually clicking to, I actually already have one set, wherever I would want that debugger, and in this case we call it a breakpoint, but it's the same idea. So now what you do is you refresh the page, and when you do, it stops at that point in the code. And if you look up here, right, these are, you can either jump, step over this function, step into the next one, step out of the current one. But the most one I use here is really just step. And what step does is it moves you through each line. So what this is great for is that it really gives you, and I'm just trying to make this a little smaller over here, is when you look at this in detail, you can really see what's going on in your code. And so I can see what got sent in was two objects in an array. I can, this work, there was nothing that came out of this, it just cleared that. But I can see as I move through, so now I'm going to step through the code. So I see that I have a play, which player I have. And so this is the idea of understanding how your code works, because the ability to understand your code will make you find the bugs faster, and B, it will teach you what it's doing. So because sometimes you think your code's doing one thing and it's doing another. So again, this step into is great, because as each line goes by, then you can see the output of what it did. So this, in this case, we're just setting up a variable. We're looking at create item, right? So as we're moving to this line, some of these lines are not as well, this one is, but some of these lines are maybe, doesn't give us as much output because it's just telling us what it did. But here, right, because you get to the end, right, and it's like, okay, create another one. So it's iterating over, because that's what the for each is doing. So it shows you each one of them. Right, so this is such an important topic. Like I said, I think using debugger is fine, but you can also use it right in the browser, and then I said both Chrome and Firefox. So if I wanted to stop doing this, right, I could either just have it move through, but if I didn't want the breakpoint, I just get rid of the breakpoint, go ahead and say run through, and then my page is back to normal. So what I did there is I went into inspect, I went into sources, I found my code, and then I just clicked here, and then I used these nice little features to be able to step through my code. And this is just great skill. I definitely recommend everyone figure out for whichever browser preference they do the best way for them for your workflow. I just find rather than to put something in my code that I have to get out later, it's just as easy to do it here. But it doesn't matter how you do it. You can do it however you want. Just start doing it. That's my whole point about that. Okay, so we're moving into our next great section, and I know this is a lot of content. This is why I was saying here, like, how are you digesting this code? How much time, the skill, how much time are you spending with these code ups, right? So, but this is really an important, all of this stuff at the end, because we have quite a bit of content to go through. So making sure that you're giving this the time is really helpful. And just to say, I am teaching Node.js. Right now it's scheduled for on campus on Wednesday nights. So it's CIT94. If you're interested in that class. If you haven't had HTML and CSS, you can consider, by the way, 94 is in person, but I am teaching a Introduction to Web Development where you learn basic HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, how to understand payments, how to understand CEO, and then that's a 9-week online course. It's called CIT82, and then Todd McLeod teaches the class after that, which is 85. So, you know, if you need to level up on some of these HTML and CSS skills, if you want to, then look at those courses. If you want to continue your JavaScript adventure, consider taking Node.js next semester. I am actually pitching, and I think it's been confirmed that this time next year we're actually going to teach JavaScript in 6 weeks, first or 9 weeks, front 9, back week. Server side, and it's going to be online. So after next semester, we will be having JavaScript 94 online. All right, enough. It was great to see some of you come out to DevFest. I've talked to almost everyone that went, and they seem to have a really good time. I appreciate you coming out. I hope it was worth your time. I know we had some great feedback about the event, so, and also ways we can improve, which is great. So anyway, have a good weekend, and I will start working on the next Learn Together. My hope is to actually have it done by the end of the weekend. Have a good one. Bye.